My name is, for those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Gabby Clark. I am the president of ASWN, which is Associate of Students of Western Nevada. I know it's a big mouthful, the name is, but it's basically our student government here on campus. And I'm here with my team today to basically chat with you guys and talk to you guys about maybe some similar questions that you guys may be having over the years or over the past couple of months, because it's just been a really tumultuous time. So with that, the first question that, the first couple of questions that we want to ask are going to be for Dr. Solis, and they might be some questions that everybody's been asking. So I kind of just want to start off by asking those really common questions. And one of those questions is, are student workers going to come back in the summer?
Gabby, thank you for giving me the opportunity to work and present the latest updates to our students. To all of you that are in the audience listening to the messaging from myself and from the team here at WNC, first and foremost, we want to thank you for selecting WNC as your institution of choice. I also want to congratulate all of you for getting to the end of what is undoubtedly the most difficult semester higher education has ever experienced in the history of the country. So I want to, just congratulate you for your tenacity and your ability to continue working towards the end of the semester as we close out a very difficult spring 2020. So with that said, to the question that Gabby has in terms of will students continue working, so as many of you know, spring contracts will be coming to an end. For those students that do not have a summer employment lined up with us, that contract comes to an end. But for those of you that your departments are still bringing you back, that continues business as usual. So we are hoping that even though we are going to be in a remote setting for teaching purposes, we are looking to reopen the campus in the next couple of weeks. So departments will probably be calling on students where they're needed, especially some of the high demand offices like financial aid, admissions, just the general area. So where the need is there, Gabby, we will definitely be bringing back students for the summer for work purposes.
All right, so there's a similar question that ties into that. With this time and all the changes that have been made, is there going to be any changes in student worker hours and or policy?
Not at this time, Gabby, other than, like I said, as the positions close for the spring semester and we reopen in the summer, it's going to be all on a need base. So as departments need their students, they bring them back. But nothing really changes in the space other than we may start off with less students depending on how we open up. We're planning a couple of different phases for the reopening. So nothing changes other than business as usual. What you might see a little bit different of will be the departments may bring back less students in the initial phase than we typically do in a normal summer.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go ahead, Julia, introduce yourself.
Hi, Dr. Solis. I wanted to ask if what are the projected budget cuts that are going to be facing WNC in 2020 and 2021?
That's a great question, Ms. Cruz. So we're looking at a couple of different scenarios. We are planning for reductions in our budget at the 6% rate for the next coming year, at the 10% rate, and at the 14% rate in terms of reductions for overall campus operations. We still have not heard back yet from the state in terms of where those levels will be. Keeping in mind that we have a very unique state that exists in our country. Much of our economy is driven by tourism and things like concerts and conferences and sporting events. Casinos and gaming are really big for us. They generate 2/3 of our overall budget for the state. So with those things kind of in limbo during the COVID pandemic, we will anticipate and are anticipating that we'll have some substantial budget cuts or less revenue coming in from the state as a result of that. So we do have plans in place for that, Ms. Cruz. So we are ready to address those items. We've been working on it for the last 6 months, not because we were aware of COVID. We were just dealing with our own budget situations. but we are prepared to deal with what will come. So we still haven't heard back from the state, but we're anticipating it could be any combination of percentages before the start of the next fiscal year, which begins July 1. So that's what we're waiting for at this time.
All right, so moving right along, this is a question that I had for you, Dr. Sleece, and it's regarding our ASWN meeting where we approved the fee increases for students during the last meeting, and how, with regards to College Council and the meeting that we just recently had, how do these fees impact our students?
That's a great question, Gabby. First, what I would like to do on that question, Gabby, is thank the members of student government, in particular yourself. For those of you that aren't familiar with our process on campus, we operate on something called participatory governance, sometimes referred to as shared governance. And what that means is that all of the stakeholders and leaders have voices in the decision-making process. So Gabby has been at the meetings where we're looking at. So to that question, we never want to impact students financially. That's the last thing that we want to do as an institution, but we are faced with some very real realities, similar to the question that Ms. Cruz asked about budgets. So one of the things that we're anticipating is that there may be potential fee increases in specific areas. Those items have been shared with student government. Gabby, as you're aware, you've been attending College Council to kind of get a sense of where those fees may come. I do think there was some really great discussion and advocacy on behalf of the students, with Gabby being in this position at the last meeting that we had when we discussed this. So, like I said, we don't want to impact our students in any way negatively, particularly with fee increases. But the realities are that the bills have to be paid. We're looking at every capacity and every revenue stream by which to do that. But we are looking at a couple of different fees, and I will turn that component over to Ms. Darla Dodge, who works with our finances, to just kind of give you a broad overview of what some of the ideas would be for potential fee increases in the coming year. So Darla?
So potential fee increases, I'm sorry, I was trying to look it up, the information. You're talking about what we approved at College Council this week?
Yes.
Okay, hold on, I gotta pull it up, hold on.
Okay.
And I can give a quick overview while you're doing that, Darla. There's many fees that are in place that are student course fees, and those are the ones that if you take a particular class, there's a fee attached to that goes for the expendables in the classroom. There's quite a few of those. If you pay, like for example, you take a biology 190, you might pay a $20 or $30 lab fee that goes with that, so for the consumables in that class. And those, we already have those fees on many classes, and this is an additional amount or an increase in those. And only students who take those classes will pay those fees. And then some of the other fees that were discussed was a student access fee. That's a $25 per student fee for each semester, and that would go to support student support initiatives to help student success. And those ones that I just mentioned are the ones that were approved by College Council, and they will go to the Board of Regents in December of this year, and they will not become active until the following fall semester. So they do not go into play until fall of 21. Does that make sense? And then there's 3 other fees in there that were part of the student services package that will come to students and be talked about, which you're welcome to do if you'd like to do that now, that have to do with supporting things like there's one in there for the fitness center, the ID cards, and there's another student support activity fee for on-campus activities and even online activities or something, however they're.
Yeah, Kyle, I can touch on that just a little bit too. We these fees that were proposed in College Council were brought up for discussion and then transferred over to for a vote in September. And what these fees do exactly is basically revamp. What we want to do is what our intentions are is to revamp our student center as well as our student life to have more student involvement, because we understand as student government that it's that there's a lot more to your health other than your education, and there's we really respect your physical health as well as your mental health, and we wanted to create and or provide a hub for students to come in order to exercise, decompress. We're also hoping there's a couple other things that are in the works for students in addition, because we also know and there have been studies that students are also in different need other than the cost of tuition. And so we understand that there's different needs with regards to housing and food. And so student life is really here to provide resources for you guys. And so sometimes we have been taking and gathering grants as well as additional money, and sometimes that in order to update our student life and our student center to make it more accommodating and more updated and accessible for you as students, sometimes there will eventually have to be certain student fees, but overall I could say right now that I am, as a student at WNC, I am really proud to be a part of this school, because I know that there is a complete and utter transparency when it comes to your fees and when it comes to your tuition. What you see, the bill that you get for your classes is essentially the bill that you get for your tuition, and that's just how it is. There's not a whole bunch of fees, and so we're really trying to be cautious with that, because we understand your needs. So.
Other questions, Gabby?
I believe my team.
Hey, Gabby, before we move on, there's a question kind of following up as we talk about fees, and it's will actual tuition be higher?
I'm going to turn that over to, I believe it's either Kyle or Darla that can answer that. I do not think so, no. There has not been a discussion of actual tuition increasing, other than what Kyle addressed about the certain courses that we are just now introducing, like the paramedic program. We are introducing fees for that program as well, but go ahead and.
So actually real quick on that. So the fees that we just discussed would go into effect fall 21. Those were already being discussed before the COVID situation, and those are normal adjustments made to the cost of instruction. So I kind of put that over off to the side as these are pieces that will support students, and they are significant if you're in some of those programs, but students know that amount going up front. The question on tuition be higher in the fall, I'm assuming that's related to the COVID, and will we be increasing in order to make up some budget shortfalls? And at this time, the tuition levels the registration fee levels are set, and there is talk about a surcharge, but that would be down the road, and NCHE would implement that across all schools. But it's on like out of the 4 steps on the percentages that the president mentioned would be something that would be in that last step, and I believe it's $3 per credit at the community colleges. Again, if we get there, and there's a whole lot of unknown on if we get there as far as everything goes. I'm not going to answer too many questions in the chat until we round them all up. But the question is, will fees go up to offset the budget? We don't know what the budget's going to be. Will we be back on campus? We're not sure. Will it cost more to not be on campus? We're not sure. So those are the things we're working through. But the regular registration fees, as they're posted right now, are not going to be adjusted, with the exception of maybe down the road that surcharge. And the rest of the crew, I don't know if I missed any details on that. Chime in if you will.
No, it's at the 14%. If we are by the governor mandated to go to the 14%, that's when that surcharge, it's the very last part of it that would be implemented. And like Kyle said, it's the $3 per credit.
So what in essence on that item, Gabby, would be that there is a tentative plan for a surcharge of $3 per credit for the students at the community college level, but that would be as a very last resort. Everything else would have to come in before that. So again, it's one of those things that we don't want to do. I mean, none of us ever want to raise fees because we know how that impacts our students. But at the same time, we're dealing with such unprecedented and unusual circumstances that have been created as a result of COVID that we're having to navigate through these items.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the clarification, all three of you. I guess the next question would be would be with school being online for the rest of the spring, how should we be enrolling for fall classes?
Well, the plan for the fall is that we're going to be here, Gabby. We're still looking at how that's going to come to be. Again, keeping in mind that things change very rapidly in one day. Things change even more rapidly to the next couple of days. So between here and the end of the summer, things could be very different for all of us, and we just don't know where that's at. But the plan is that we are ready to deliver courses in the fall in a normal session. There may be more options of Zoom and online and some of these other areas, particularly for our larger classes. We are concerned with density, and short of some kind of miracle vaccine that comes up in the next couple of months. We're concerned about density, and we want to make sure, again, that our decisions are made first and foremost with the safety of our students and our team members. So large classes may be moved to a remote setting where possible, so that we can mitigate some of the crowding of students into classes. So plan is we're here. We're going to be here. We're going to be ready to promote great student learning experiences as we always have, but we're also ready to adjust the game plan if needed based on what's happening in the COVID space.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I add on to that just to one qualifier on that? The schedule is live, and every day we're adding new notes that will tell you if a class has a Zoom option. We're trying to put more Zoom and remote learning options to as many classes as we can to help build enrollment. Although we expect to be back on campus, we realize there's some populations may not be able to come back or want to come back because maybe they're high risk or that sort of thing if we end up in another phase of the virus. So we want to implement as much of the remote technology as we can to current classes. So you'll see those notes start popping up. Look for what we're calling the PJ classes, which sounds like a really great idea from me, a 50-something, talking to all of you. We're a lot younger, but it's remote learning. It's safe and secure from doing from home. And if we can put Zoom in multiple classrooms, we want you to be able to take advantage of that.
Perfect. And we have a list of questions here that really my team had some questions regarding. So I'm going to have Donnell, my senator, ask the next question for you guys.
Okay. I think Donnie's mic is on mute.
I'd say, Addison, if you're ready for the next question, go ahead and do that.
All right. Well, the next question I'm pretty sure is, knowing there's potential for the college to be closed going and when we continue in the fall, like how do we go about that?
Well, again, goes back to the safety and well-being of our students and our faculty, our staff. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that we're following the best practices as it relates to the safety. So we're working very closely with the state and local governments along with the system to ensure that that's happening. But again, the plan is that we reopen in the fall and that we will monitor the situation very closely based on the information that we're getting and how it develops. Because again, 3 months from now is going to be very different than where we're at right now.
Hey guys, along these same lines, there's a number of questions in the feed about how do students complete the steps that they need to do to get ready for fall? So completing orientation, taking placement tests, and things like that.
So one of the items, and I'll turn this over to Jeff and the folks that are in the student services area in a bit, but again, the idea is that we are going to be reopening over the next couple of weeks. We're still working on the details to that plan. We will have our offices open for business with face-to-face interactions, but where possible, we will still continue doing the remote advising and things that can happen in that space, all focused on the safety of our students. So Jeff, do you want to add anything to that piece?
Yeah, so we're looking at ways to keep social distancing up once we come back on campus, and possibly trying to look at a flow pattern for traffic to come into the building, go out of the building. And so that's where it's going to be heading. Of course, trying to keep minimal numbers in. The counseling has been meeting with students using Zoom, I believe financial aid as well. So student services are still being met, student needs there. I kind of want to make a comment because I've been reading it come up a few times in the chat part about placement testing. So if I can address that real quick. When we do open up again, we can do placement testing again in the counseling office. We also have the multiple majors coming on board where students can go for, there's a site set up in Canvas for both the math and English, so students can take that process and look at, kind of self-test themselves and see where they might fall as the best placement for math and English. Also, they're looking at backgrounds in terms of high school transcripts for placements as well. So I didn't want to digress there, but I've seen that comment come up 2 or 3 times now. So.
No, that's good, Jeff. Thank you. That was the AccuPlacer one. That if we can't get on site to do AccuPlacer, there is the availability to do self-placement.
But they're also looking at doing I don't know when we're going to be back. So Piper has been looking at doing a remote AccuPlacer test, but that will incur an additional fee for remote proctoring as well.
There's another question in here, maybe just so that the whole group understands. What are the means in which students can reach out to financial aid, the counseling office, and whatnot? I know that you can do more than phone calls right now. So what are those options available to students who are looking for help?
So right now, all of our services are available remotely. And again, as I mentioned, we will be opening and announcing those plans very shortly in the next couple of days. But I'll let JW, who's here from financial aid, address how we can reach the financial aid office. That office obviously very important to the student enrollment process. And Jeff, if you can talk to any of the other offices in their process. But JW, if you want to talk about some of the things you guys are doing in financial aid.
Sure. So this is JW from the financial aid office. We are meeting with students primarily through phone appointments. That's usually the easiest way to connect with students. But for students that want something more face-to-face, we're happy to entertain a Zoom appointment or through Google Hangouts while we're working remotely. Oftentimes students can get a lot of their questions answered via email, which if that is your preferred method, we're happy to help you that way. So we're going to continue to be flexible and help meet the needs of students in whatever manner works best for you. So just reach out to us, whether that's through leaving us a voicemail or contacting us via email, and we'll find a way to meet your needs. Most of our forms, as those of you that use financial aid know, oftentimes you have a lot of forms to submit. Most of our forms can be done online. And for any other additional documentation you might need to submit, you can upload that through our new upload tool, which is on the financial aid webpage under the forms link. So that's another possibility and way to submit forms. But if you have questions or you know students that are concerned or not sure what the next steps are, don't hesitate to reach out. We have folks available to help walk you through the process.
Perfect. Thank you, JW. And while I actually have your attention, I wanted to ask the question. Well, my teammates and I, we all came up with a series of questions, and one of them was regarding the CARES Act. Can you tell us a little bit about the CARES Act and the students who qualify, and potentially that funding, when those students are going to get that funding?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the term CARES Act, it is essentially a portion of the stimulus funding that was passed by Congress and later signed by the president. And WNC is going to receive about $681,000 in emergency grant funds that can go out to students. So our goal is to get that money out to students as soon as possible. And there's about 762 students that received either checks in the mail today or direct deposits, with award amounts ranging from $100 to $900. So those students that received money today don't need to apply for the funds. You were automatically identified as a student who had a disruption in your education, meaning you were forced to move from in-person courses to online courses in one or more of your courses. So those students were already identified. To be eligible, you had to move from in-person to online. You had to be a FAFSA filer and have a complete financial aid file. Award amounts were determined based on your estimated family contribution, which comes from your FAFSA. So if you want details about your EFC or your estimated family contribution, let us know. We're happy to explain that to you. So award amounts were determined based off your EFC and your level of enrollment. For students who were not initially identified in the formula that we just used to get that money out the door, there's still an opportunity for you to do an application. So there's a CARES Act application that you can reach from our financial aid webpage, so wnc.edu/financial. And there's a message right there on the front page that talks about CARES. If you just follow that link, it goes to the CARES page where the application lives. Students can submit that CARES application, and we will do our best to try to see if we can give you CARES funds, which would be the money that we're getting from the federal government.
And
if
Gabby,
you don't qualify for those funds, then we will see if there's any other opportunities to consider you for other institutional or other emergency grant funds.
And Gabby, what I wanted to just to kind of dovetail into JW's comments is that for those students whose financial situation may have changed at home with either themselves or parents, with the employment perspectives, given where we're at right now, there are the possibilities that JW's office can still help. There's still a percentage of those care funds that can be used for students that didn't fill out the Pell Grant applications last time around. So it's really important for students to take advantage of all the opportunities that are there. We will keep the students informed of any other stimulus packages that may come our way to assist through this time, but make sure that you connect to the folks at Financial Aid and see if there's any assistance they can provide you through this difficult time.
Perfect. And JW, I just wanted to give you a quick scenario. Recently, about a year ago, I knew that I was not going to qualify for any financial aid, and so I did not fill out my FAFSA. Instead, I paid for school out of pocket. And I'm pretty sure that there's probably a population of students that know that they couldn't get financial aid and instead paid school out of pocket. If I were that student, how would I go about that process? Would I fill out an application or file a FAFSA?
Yeah, we would encourage you to fill out the FAFSA because you could become eligible for federal funding, but we wouldn't know that until you've done the FAFSA. So we encourage students to do the FAFSA for this current year, 2019, 2020, and then for continuing students also for 2020, 2021. If you're looking to get CARES funds, we would also ask you to do the CARES application and explain what the disruption to your education was in that application. The CARES application is very simple, very straightforward. You check some boxes, you provide a brief statement, and then it comes into our inbox.
That's perfect. Thank you, JW. Appreciate it. All right, so a couple of my team members had some other questions. Jen, I can turn it over to you regarding the next question.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Sanchez, and I am the ASWN Secretary, and my question is, are there any updates about graduation?
Sure, absolutely. Great question. So I know that graduation is on all of our students' minds, particularly those that are or were slated to graduate in May. Congratulations to all of you in that group. It's a big day. It's the day that we all work for, including our faculty or staff, and obviously you, the students. So the updates that we have is that the tentative date, and again, tentative, we're still working through these items, is September 18th, subject to change. We're trying to coordinate schedules, but we do want to and plan to have that very special day for our students. We are trying to do it as soon as possible, simply because the later that we hold on to that date, Ms. Sanchez, we're concerned that less students and family members would participate if we wait too long. So we're trying to get this done early in the fall semester. So the idea would be September the 18th. We're still trying to work out the details.
Thank you.
Perfect. So I basically, as for ASWN and my team, we kind of basically summed up all of the common questions that you folks may have. I just wanted to let all of you know basically a little bit more about ASWN, and that our job is to help you guys. And as students, this is a message to all of you as students. It is our job to hear your feedback and hear what you guys are thinking about regarding your classes, regarding student workers. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always email us at aswn.edu. And we also encourage that you guys follow our social media pages, because another aspect of ASWN is to put on events for you guys. You know, we're hoping, and we have a couple plans in the works in terms of a welcome back week when it comes to fall, when it comes to that time when we can all return to campus, hopefully safely. And I just wanted to reiterate to you guys that student government is here for you guys, and we've always been advocating for you, even during this tumultuous time when it feels like we've all been kind of a little bit isolated. And so if you have any questions, please let us know. You can also email me personally. My email is gabrielle.clark@wnc.edu. And then there's also a student government blurb, like a little bullet point on our WNC's website. So if you wanted to email any of my team, you're more than welcome to do so. We also, a couple of the things that we had in the works for fall and or this week actually is an open mic night on May 7th, and it's going to be on Zoom at 5 p.m. So if any of you guys are beautiful poets, if any of you guys have amazing short stories and you're just total creative weirdos and you really want your light to shine, the open mic night is going to be so fun, and we really hope that you guys attend, and we hope it's going to be an event where you can socialize and get your mind off things like finals. And another thing that we have going for us at ASWN, like I talked about, we understand as ASWN that students have needs other than educationally speaking. We know that there's a food insecurity. We know that there's housing insecurities, and that sometimes ramen just isn't going to cut it anymore. So we're hoping to build a food pantry, and we pretty much have the plans and the funding in place to start our food pantry by the fall. And you know, if things are still tumultuous by the fall and nobody can return to campus, we can also we're hoping to set up a drive-by food pantry for you, and we'll just keep you updated on that because we understand that your needs expand far greater than just school. And then we also have, if you're just now finding out about student government and you're just now thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity for me to do something extracurricular, and I really want to expand my educational perspective, and I want to join student government. We're actually hosting elections, so if any of you are wanting to get involved, please do so and email any of us, and we would love to have your participation and support. So and then with that, Jamie, you've been doing an amazing job at communicating all the questions that students may have. I now want to turn it over so that you guys can ask your questions. So
I do have a few more questions that have been coming in on the chat. If I can slide those in here, that'll probably clear up some things for everybody. As we go into finals week, there's a handful of questions about other substitutions for in-person resources that aren't currently available, such as using the library or math labs, academic coaching, and things like that.
So that's a great question. And before I respond to that one, just want to let everybody know in the group that our very own Regent Perkins is on the Zoom with us. She wishes everybody well, and she loves the questions. And Regent Perkins, if you're still with us, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to spend time with our regents, especially hearing the student perspective. So one of the things on that question, which I think is really good in terms of the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about, are student spaces. One of the things that we found out through this whole process is, one, that even though the students that are on this call are the I generation, because you guys are all tied to your phones and technology, Zoom and the online courses are not what students prefer, is what we're finding out. So the request for student spaces across the system is something that we talked about today in our Council of Presidents meetings with the system. And the idea of reopening those spaces in a way that's conducive. So we might have to separate the furniture, do continuous cleaning, those kinds of things. But students across the system are asking for the spaces to be reopened so that they can study, so that they can have access to the internet, so that they can have access to computers. This process of doing the education at home has a lot of potential in terms of comfort and ease of access. But if you don't have the internet, if you don't have the right computer, if you don't have the things set up, it makes learning difficult. So we have that request come in across the system. And part of our reopening plan are to have those spaces available as soon as possible.
There's some follow-up questions about getting into lockers and offices, as well as returning books from the library. Should students just hang on until we get our reopening plan back in order, or should they take another step to do those things?
Well, I would say that if there's something in the lockers that is, like let's say a medication or something like that, we'll always make accommodations to get the items out. And like I said, over the next couple of days, we're going to be launching our reopening plan. So the campus will be open for those that are going to be having the foot traffic in our buildings. So if there's something that absolutely has to get out of the lockers, we can make those arrangements.
Okay, and then there's a number of questions about being able to attend orientation when we get back on campus. And I think the answer to that is yes. Once we start to move back into some business as usual, that orientations will definitely continue as well.
We have the online orientation. It's already set up, that I believe is live now. So students can go through that process. In terms of an in-person one, it's all going to depend on whatever the social distancing requirements are at the time that we could do it. So if we can have a group of people or a small group spaced out, we'll see what can happen at the time. But it's just one of those answers no one wants. We're going to see and wait to see what happens.
Just to add on to what Jeff said, to get to the online orientation, it's just wnc.edu/welcome. And there's a link right there for the online orientation that's open to anybody.
Kyle, would you be willing to talk about the library resources like tutoring and math lab that's available during this time?
Yes, and so I did post something in the chat about the books. If you have books that are outstanding, there is an external library box that you can drop those at the Carson campus. As far as the tutoring goes and all of that, that is available online. We're actually looking at a product that is we have two groups going on. We have our academic coaches who are in the library, and they're working with students. And if anyone needs resources on how to connect with that, let me know. And then we're looking at another product that would be like a third-party solution for some tutoring to be able to expand it in the coming year if we need it, to keep things moving forward. And as far as the spaces go, once the campus is reopened, we'll probably be looking at the distancing models and that sort of thing for students who use the library space, because we do realize that library has become the functional student hangout on campus, and so we need to watch over that to make sure if there's restrictions on group sizes that we space it out appropriately.
Okay, we have some wildcard questions that don't really fall under any other topic, so I'm just going to put them in the order that I got them. How will Jumpstart change in light of this pandemic?
Well, again, what we anticipate, Jamie, is that we're going to try to reach a level of quote unquote, air quotes, normalcy. So we're working closely with school districts to figure out that element. Obviously, they're going to be looking at their plans as well in terms of where they provide the services to students and how they do that. They've got the same concerns that we do in terms of density, helping mitigate the spread of this issue. So we'll have more on that by the end of summer, but a lot depends on how they're going to be delivering courses as well in K-12.
So there's also a question about what nursing might look like moving forward, and acknowledgement that it's really hard to move through the nursing program during this time.
So nursing and allied health programs will be will continue on campus in some capacity, one way or the other. And if there is social distancing or restrictions on who can come to campus, those programs have been approved to be able to be on campus. Nursing did one route this year with virtual labs and students going into some clinical settings. The EMS paramedic program is actually holding labs on campus. So the lab components will be on campus with strict medical protocols, including screening and similar things you find out going into medical facilities on campus, with the lecture portion being adapted for online as best as possible. Those programs, and again, primarily for WNC, it's nursing, EMS, paramedic, phlebotomy, and CNA, we're keeping in play, again, working with the governor's office and through our system to be able to ensure safety of the students and the instructors. But because they are a need in this type of emergency crisis, they're actually clamoring for our graduates because the healthcare workers are getting exhausted, and there's always been a demand for healthcare workers, even more so now.
We have some extra motivated folks out there that are wondering when we will know what classes are offered for spring 2021.
Oh, I love the enthusiasm for whoever asked that question. As soon as we get the schedules in place, we will have that up and running. So I will say this, for that individual who asked the question, thank you for your energy. To all the students that are working on their degrees, let's make sure that you continue to chase that dream. I know that we're in a difficult spot, but don't stop going after what you are doing with your college education, because it will be more important than ever as the world recovers from COVID. So don't stop, keep chasing it. And as soon as we have that schedule, and see, Willie just gave me the thumbs up from his end. So keep chasing the dream. And as soon as we have the schedule up for 21, we'll have that up and running for you guys.
Jamie, if I could interject, I noticed on the chat there were a couple of questions regarding the CARES and being dual enrolled. JW, do you want to shed some light on what institutions are doing regarding the CARES Act, and if it's the same or if they're doing anything different for those dual enrolled folks?
Sure. Thanks, Gabby. Each institution is administering the CARES Act in the way they best fits their institution. So everybody is doing a little bit different. So if you're dual enrolled at TMCC and WNC, or UNR and WNC, it's being administered a little bit differently at each school. What I would tell you is that you should only get the CARES funds from only one institution, and I would encourage you just to work with the institution where you receive your financial aid. So it's already against the law for you to get federal financial aid like Pell Grants or student loans at two different institutions. So just work with the financial aid office at wherever you're receiving your aid for this semester. That's how I would direct you.
Perfect. Thank you, JW.
Yep.
Okay, I just have one question left on here, but before I ask that for the group, I just want to make sure everybody knows that the spring 2021 schedule would publish on the college website on October 15th. And at that time, any winter session classes would publish at that time as well. So the soonest that students would be able to see a schedule for spring or winter session would be October 15th. And that just follows our standard calendar for releasing that, with registration for both of those starting in early November. The last question is an old one. It's kind of deep in the chat, but it's about the fees that are proposed for student life. And the question is, what kind of improvements would be possible for the Fallon campus if those student life improvement fees were going through?
Amy, I can answer that question too, because we spoke about it as a team. One of those fees that was pushed for discussion in September and was not yet quite approved was supposed to be a $2 fee per student, and that was regarding specifically student IDs. Now, right now, in our current situation, that we have a machine that costs over $1,000, and we only have one on our Carson campus. And for a long time, ASWN is constantly trying to include our outside campuses. such as Fallon. And so we really want to make it accessible for Fallon students to be able to receive their ID cards in Fallon rather than having to drive all the way to Carson to make their ID card. So that's an example of one of the fees that we've discussed and how Fallon plays a role in that. We also want to improve some of our exercise equipment that's in our Carson campus, and hopefully with enough funding we can be able to carry that on to and extend that to our other campuses as well, particularly in Fallon. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right, everyone, that's the last of the questions that I have coming in. If you guys want to give some parting thoughts to the group.
Well, on my end, before I turn it over to Gabby for completing the event, I just want to thank everybody for, again, selecting WNC as your institution of choice. I know you have lots of options, but keep one thing in mind, that at WNC, you get a great learning experience, but you also have open door policies to all of our folks. Everybody who's on this chat room is always available. On Wednesdays, we have office hours at 2 p.m. So after this meeting, all of the executive team members go to their offices, quote unquote, virtual Zooms, and anybody can pop in, talk to us. Like I said, doesn't have to be anything about questions, can be questions, could just be anything that you want to share with us to let us know about what's happening in your world and how we can make the WNC experience better. So I do want to thank everyone. Again, keep chasing that dream of getting your college degrees. Thank you for being here today. Gabby, great job putting this together. So with that said, Gabby, I think you've got some closing comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate to you, just like Dr. Solis said, we do have an open door policy with ASWN. And believe it or not, I have seen firsthand the changes that have been made on this campus solely because of student input. Faculty and staff want your feedback. They want to know what you're doing and what you approve of and what you disapprove of when it comes to the campus, so that we can essentially become a better campus. And that's actually our job as ASWN, is to be advocates for you. And so please speak up if there's anything from a class that you've taken to a bathroom stall. Like, just let us know. And we would love to hear your feedback about anything regarding the campus, and that's our job. So thank you so much, Dr. Solis, and everybody who's been so helpful in answering all these questions for students. I'd love to have a chat like this again. If you guys have any more questions, please let us know.
Great job, Gabby.
I'm going to jump in really quick. This is Heather. I'm the advisor of ASWN and the student life coordinator. And I just want to give a shout out to our ASWN members who have worked very hard during this time that we've been home, constantly trying to get student input, having their weekly meetings, putting this chat together. They've done a great job. We have one meeting left next Tuesday, and then we're on to the next semester. So this is a time where some of them will be leaving us and not coming back, and we appreciate everything that you've done for our students. Also in the poll, we had a couple students that said that they were graduating. If you're graduating this year, congratulations. We're sorry about what's happening. We're trying to do the best that we can to make it special for you. And just, I really, really, really appreciate the students coming by today. Without you guys, none of this is possible. And also a shout out to our executive staff, our president, our VPs, all of our directors that came supporting the students and their questions. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you for your time. And we hope that you have a great day. And come to our open mic on Thursday.
Heather, I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for all your efforts as the SGA advisor. You guys are doing an amazing job with everything from food pantry to these meetings and just keeping student life going. On behalf of everybody on campus, we want to thank you for your amazing efforts. You and Gabby have done an exceptional job with the rest of the group to continue the student voice being heard on our campus. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without my team. So thank you, team.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Be safe.
Thank you,
Michael,
everyone.
great job today in your presentations. Outstanding. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir, for the compliment.
Bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.